In this video, I transition from a Quest 2 to the mixed reality capable Quest 3 and use it for sim racing and some other types of fun gameplay. And all from an older gamer's perspective. There are plenty of videos reviewing the Quest 3, hundreds of them, but I wanted to give a personal insight on what it's like to transition from a Quest 2 to a Quest 3 as an ordinary consumer. One who has bought this headset with his own money. And because I'm addicted to sim racing, I will slant this review, as much as I can, towards iRacing and other sim racing software, and look if there are any improvements to using the Quest 3 over the Quest 2 when using it as a PC VR headset. In doing so, I can perhaps give the average sim racer and even the average VR games player a broader idea if they really need to upgrade from the Quest 2 to a Quest 3, or if you don't have a headset at all, well, do you need to buy a Quest 3? Or at least, do you need to buy it now? Precious. Test criteria. Feel free to skip to the time links of those topics that interest you the most. I will try to keep this as modular as I can. That being said, if you are going to watch the whole video, this is going to be a deeper dive than I normally do and a longer view. I'm out. So grab a beverage, kick back as we get stuck right into the first topic. Comfort. The stock headband on the Quest 3 sucks. There is no other way of looking at this. I have watched, along with all of you, the YouTubers who claim the new cloth strap, with its slight redesign, is a much better experience than the one that came with the Quest 2. And while they aren't exactly misleading anyone, they aren't really telling the whole truth.
You can't handle the truth!
So if they aren't telling the whole truth, what's the deal? How does the Quest 3 stock strap compare with the Quest 2's stock strap? Well, to be honest, I loathed the Quest 2's strap from the get-go, mostly because the strap left me with a red mark around my face that made me look as though I'd contracted some kind of weird tropical disease. The balance of this head strap sucked as well, with the Quest 2 often working its way down the length of my nose, and I have a very big nose. I upgraded the stock strap on the Quest 2 after about a week of use to the Bobo VR M2 Pro head strap, which also featured a hot swappable battery that not only extended the duration of the Quest 2's playtime, but also added an important counterweight that balanced this headset beautifully. The Quest 3's balance point, however, is much improved and doesn't need the battery for balance, at least my first impressions of this. But it does need an extended battery very badly. I'll come back to that later. Although the two headsets are virtually identical in weight, the Quest 3 has an improved centre of balance that doesn't drag the headset down my face, even when I'm using the stock strap. Not even if I'm playing pistol whip. Or at least it doesn't do it nearly as much or to the same extreme as the Quest 2 with the stock strap. From that point of view, the stock strap on the Quest 3 is sort of an improvement, but it's more to do with the physical ergonomics of the Quest 3 rather than the strap actually being better. In real life, it is still very uncomfortable, has an irritating habit of trapping one of my ears when I put it on, and still leaves me with a red mark on my face, albeit not as bad as the one left by the Quest 2, to be frank. The stock strap of the Quest 3, much like the Quest 2, is virtually unusable and an embarrassment to Meta. To be fair, the Quest 3 offers some slight improvement on comfort, mostly due to the improved balance, and I can use the stock strap for a duration of 3 hours before I start to feel like my forehead is caving in. So points-wise, I would say this is close. But the Quest 3 edges just ahead of the Quest 2 with the stock strap, but not by much. Quest 3, 1. Quest 2, 0. Both suck on a universal level and need to be replaced before anything serious in VR can be accomplished, but the Quest 3 sucks just a little bit less. Hopefully Bobo VR will remember sometime soon where Europe is, and Kiwi Design will soon get around to actually announcing Quest 3 accessories, once either of those things occur, I will certainly be buying a new head strap and also a replacement face pad, as the original has all the softness of a slightly degraded scouring pad. Sadly, for such an expensive piece of kit, both basic items need to be replaced ASAP.
ASAP. That means now.
Setup. I received the Quest 3 fairly near to the release date once Amazon had stopped teasing me, and of course on arrival it needed to be charged. Once that was done, I linked the Quest 3 to my account using the app on my phone. It was all fairly painless and straightforward. It has to be said, during the setup process, I did sit there with a big grin on my face, because the setup screen inside the Quest 3 appears in mixed reality. You see your surroundings, but overlaid are these floating windows containing videos and setup information for the Quest 3. It's a novel and exciting experience, and suddenly I felt like I was in my own, slightly less dystopian version of Minority Report. It's hard to describe this childish glee of being surrounded by the familiarity of my own room while floating there in the air were windows to virtual worlds. It really is very cool, and so far the novelty hasn't worn off. It still puts a smile on my face every time I put the headset on. The default is mixed reality, but you can also use total immersion if you want. But why would you want to do that? When I eventually managed to pull myself away from mixed reality, I got on with the next task, connecting the Quest 3 to my PC via a cable and the Oculus app. When connected to the PC, I use my VR headset for sim racing and flight sim, so I do like the headset to connect with as little fuss as possible. That's very important to me. My time schedule means I need the headset to connect to the PC first time every time, so that I don't spend time faffing around with settings when I could be racing or flying. The Quest 3 performed admirably here. The first time it did refuse to connect, but that might have been because the Quest 2 had been connected earlier and it was confused. But a reboot of the computer sorted that out, and I was connected via the PC app in no time at all. Once I was connected to the Void, as I suppose you should call it, possibly a shade quicker than the Quest 2, I could display my PC monitor in VR so that I could access the games I wanted to play, in this case, iRacing. So from out of the box to being ready to connect to iRacing and taking part in a race took me in total about 15 to 20 minutes, not including the charging time. But that was just the first time. After that, I've been able to simply turn on the headset, connect, and then start playing in less than a minute. To steal a phrase from Bill, I just plug and play.
I don't mind being labeled as somebody who finds that interesting.
I think the setup of the Quest 2 was no more involved or complicated than the Quest 3. Maybe slightly slower on the Quest 2, but the Quest 3 also offers mixed reality during the setup, which made me smile. And for that alone, I will give this round to the Quest 3. Unfair, I know, but that's just me. This puts the Quest 3 on 2 points and the Quest 2 on 0 points. Battery life. While I was being distracted in mixed reality and just generally testing the headset to make sure it was free of dead pixels and the hand trackers actually tracked, I became painfully aware of how quickly the battery was draining. The battery of the Quest 3 is rated for about 2 hours, but I got far less than that. Using mixed reality and a few other titles, I played for just over an hour before I was down to 25% battery. The battery on the Quest 3 is bigger than the Quest 2. However, it's having to drive bigger displays, twice as many of them in fact, and it's powering a much more powerful CPU. Plus, the inevitable drain of mixed reality using the cameras from pass-through. As far as battery life is concerned, it's no gain when comparing the Quest 3 with the Quest 2. In fact, it's really a negative gain, as I'm sure the Quest 2 lasted longer with just its internal battery. But then I didn't play any mixed reality on the Quest 2, so perhaps it's a false equivalence. Either way, the playtime available with the built-in battery of the Quest 3 is disappointingly short. Those of you with a keen eye will have noticed in the last clip I have actually already updated my headset. This is just a cheap Chinese knockoff of the Elite strap from Meta. It cost me significantly less. I'm not quite sure how long it will last, what its durability will be, but for the moment it's working fine. I also attached to the back using some Velcro a power bank that I had knocking around in a drawer for ages and plugged that in using the usual USB-C cable. This has worked nicely. It can't quite keep up with the power demands of the Quest 3 in that when I'm playing, the battery on the Quest 3 discharges slightly slower because it's getting power from the power bank, but it doesn't charge completely. In other words, if I'm at 100% when I start playing, it's not at 100% when I finish playing, but it is at a reduced percentage so that I can play longer with this power bank attached. It also adds a little bit of extra balance on the back. It doesn't really need it with this new strap, but everything helps, right? But the bottom line, as far as the built-in battery is concerned, is that it sucks when you use it as a standalone headset. And you will need to find a way to solve this. Otherwise, your VR and MR playtimes will be limited. However, for sim racers who prefer to use the cable connect, there is some good news. I found that using this cable connected to my PC's USB-C port, I was able to reduce but not halt the drain on the battery significantly. While playing iRacing, I could do 15 minutes of practice, then a couple of practice laps before the race, the qualification, and then a 35-minute C-Class race. And at the end of it, I would only have lost 15% charge from the Quest 3's battery. This means I could comfortably race most of the evening without ever having to worry about recharging at all. In fact, one evening, jumping between rookie races, I was able to race 4 times in succession using different cars, and I still had significant amounts of battery power left in the Quest 3. When leaving the headset plugged into this cable and not connected to the PC app, the headset trickle charges the Quest 3 from the PC, which is cool. In comparison, if I use AirLink to play iRacing with the Quest 3 with no external power or battery attached to the headset, I will lose about 45% of the battery's charge in just one 35-minute race, which means that I can only get in one race, perhaps 2 at the most, before the headset is desperate for a recharge. Most serious sim racers use a cable, but if you don't, then this is something important to consider. At some point, I will upgrade my cable to this one, which draws additional power from a USB 3 socket or from a PSU plugged into the mains. Reports that I've heard have said this keeps the headset at close to 100% for however long you can endure wearing it. Given all that, I would say that this is a win for the Quest 2. The Quest 3 has a bigger battery but uses more juice. The Quest 2 has a slower chip and less pixels in the display, so uses less, and the battery lasts longer. For iRacers who only want to use AirLink, currently the Quest 2 is the better choice. That is until the Quest 3 gets a head strap with a battery that is better than any being currently supplied. This gives the Quest 2 its first point, and the scores now are Quest 3, 2 points, Quest 2, 1 point. Field of view. Before we take a look at the field of view results for both headsets, it's worth taking a moment to talk about the way I have recorded the footage.
I don't trust it.
You will have noticed the format of the headset videos is in a square format. This is an option in the headset, and I chose it because it's a more accurate representation of what the eye sees, in this case, the right eye. The headset can only record one eye or the other. I could have used the widescreen option in the headset, but this crops the recorded image and can add some distortion to the edges. Please also remember that you are seeing the footage after YouTube has compressed it, so some quality loss should be taken into account. Now that you know that, let's test the FOV using a program called Test HMD tool, which is unsurprisingly a tool for testing HMDs. This is a small program that contains a single room with various tests that you can self-perform with your headset. It's headset agnostic, so you can pop in here with any VR equipment. And judging by the wall chart, this program has been around for a few years. The program only costs a few dollars, so do go buy it, because it's good to encourage indie development teams by rewarding them with more than just a thank you. There are plenty of tests here, so I do encourage you to buy this program and try it out. I will link it below. The pertinent test for us here is field of view. Here you enter this small glowing area and the headset becomes fixed, so I can't move the display by looking left or right. Once inside, I can then use the controls to widen the two red lines until they reach a point where I can't see them anymore. Now, I found this to be a rough indication of FOV rather than the definitive guide. When you enter the test, you do have to look in exactly the right place, otherwise the results can be somewhat skewed. That being said, the result for the Quest 3 was a horizontal field of view of about 108 degrees. Using my eyes, yours might have a different result, and a vertical field of view that was around 132 degrees. In comparison, the Quest 2 had a horizontal field of view of 94 and a vertical of 110-ish. This isn't totally scientific and dependent on how you stand in the angle of the headset and when you enter the test, but it still shows roughly a gain of around 20 degrees on both horizontal and vertical field of view for the Quest 3.
That doesn't sound very scientific.
Never mind the science, or lack of it, what does it actually look like in iRacing? Using the iRacing UI, I connected to a hot lap session. I did this so that the car appears on the track, which is slightly more interesting than in the pits. But I wanted it to be in exactly the same place each time so that I can try to record the FOV differences between the two headsets. Here is the Formula V at Lime Rock Park track. Just at the bridge before the last corner. I'm sure you all recognize it. After centering the view with the HMD center hotkey, I had this field of view in the Quest 2. If I reduce the size of that image and place the Quest 3 recording next to it, you can see the FOV increase in-game when seeing it through the Quest 3. Yes, it's not amazingly huge, but it is there, and it's surprisingly easy to get used to. I found that I missed it, even though I wasn't that aware of it, when I returned to the Quest 2 from the 3. Of course, that's only half the story. The other half is the glorious pancake lenses of the Quest 3, which in comparison to the Fresnel lenses of the Quest 2 show clear focus across the entire lens, whereas the Quest 2 has a sweet spot, usually in the center, where focus is clear, while towards the edges it's blurry. This was particularly obvious in iRacing during play, but you can't actually see it on the recording, so I will simulate it here with a Photoshop blur filter to give you a rough idea of what you see in the Quest 2 outside of the sweet spot in the center. If you need to look at something else on the screen that is outside of your sweet spot, you have to physically turn your head. In the Quest 3, you can just move your eyes. That really does make an immersion difference, it really does. The Quest 3 does not suffer from these issues. It has no sweet spot, it has a pancake lens and it's clear from edge to edge. And because of this, it's much less of an immersion breaker while you're playing. For me, this slight increase in FOV combined with a virtually unlimited sweet spot makes the Quest 3 a clear winner in this section. Quest 3, 3 points. Quest 2, 1 point. Performance. This is all well and good. An actual increase in FOV is great, even if it's not huge. And an unlimited sweet spot is fantastic. But what's the performance like? Has it improved or got worse? For me, I find the headset connects just a little bit quicker and games load a little bit faster. It's a faster chip, so that's to be expected, I guess. In games like Pavlov, you see a snappier playstyle, and of course some improvement in the graphics, but I will come to that later. Other games such as Beat Saber or Pistol Whip also look better, but don't really appear to play any faster. Well, I mean, that's to be expected. It's a limitation, perhaps, of the game. The graphics on most games have been improved for the Quest 3, so I guess the performance is probably going to remain relatively static. Back to iRacing, it's a similar story. The game loads faster, but the performance in-game is about the same. You can see the performance bars of the Quest 2 and 3 when they are on an AI track with 12 cars. I used AI track to remove the variables of connection issues. Both the Quest 2 and the Quest 3 performance bars are roughly equal and both retain the FPS set by the Oculus app. In this case 90 FPS as the hertz is set to 90 hertz. In my experience, particularly with iRacing, both will only drop frames when the track creates a performance issue, such as in Virginia International. By the way, I've set the Oculus debug tool here to the defaults so that neither the Quest 2 or the Quest 3 is getting any kind of advantage from that. I tested this again in a larger race of 28 cars, which does tend to stress my computer, and the results were about the same. Again, there were some fluctuations at the start of the race when the grid is being populated, and sometimes up towards the first corner of the first lap, but mostly it's solid and I never see a problem. But I also haven't really seen much improvement in performance from the Quest 2 to the Quest 3. The graphics are undeniably better in the Quest 3, and I will come to that soon, but the performance isn't improved. There's no visible improvement. But the fact that it isn't actually worse is good news. No visible loss of performance, but also no gain, means both headsets get a point, which puts the Quest 3 on 4 points and the Quest 2 on 2 points. Graphical Fidelity. When I look through the Quest 2, I have a sweet spot that is in focus. Depending on how the headset is positioned, it will be approximately over the center of my eyes. If I look ahead, everything is pretty much in focus, but if I look to the right without moving my head, only moving my eyes, what I see is a lot of blurring, which I've simulated here using an oval blur filter. This is considered normal and a known effect of using lenses that have graduations in the surface. The Quest 3 gets around this with the use of pancake lenses, which removes the blurring, and while I can't really show this here, I can tell you that without moving my head and just moving my eyes, I can look at any part of the iRacing cockpit and it will be in crystal clear focus. There is also a lot of talk on the internet about the screen door effect, describing the effect of looking at the image through a fine mesh, a screen door. It does exist in the Quest 3, but less so than that of the Quest 2. Possibly because of the better displays, the pancake lenses, the faster chip, or more likely a combination of this and other factors. Some people say they can clearly see it, but for me personally, I can only really see it when there is a large high contrast object in a faraway backgroundy place. For example, the sky is taking up a large part of the screen. If it's far enough away and I'm looking at it for long enough, in that case, yes, I become aware of the screen door effect. But in normal gameplay, it's not something I notice, or at least not often. Possibly in space games like Elite Dangerous, if anyone's still playing it, or flight simulators, it would be more obvious. Certainly with the Quest 2, it was something that was irritatingly easy to spot, but with the Quest 3, less so. Your eyesight differs from mine and you might find it to be a greater problem. But for me personally, the reduced screen door effect and the pancake lenses giving such a clear focus across the whole lens, and not just the sweet spot, makes the Quest 3 a clear winner. Quest 3 5, Quest 2 2. Audio quality. I am admittedly not the best person in the world to speak about audio quality, being slightly hard of hearing in my left ear. That being said, I do think the tone of the engines and the squeal of the tyres do come out a little clearer when inside iRacing on the Quest 3. It's not a massive change, but for me personally, the audio quality is cleaner, has a little bit more bass, or at least it's not as tinny, and is a bit louder, even at lower volume levels. And perhaps sounds a little more like a good set of headphones, whereas the Quest 2 always sounded to me like a cheap pair of PC speakers. It's not an earth-shattering improvement, but it is decidedly better than the Quest 2. The microphone on the Quest 3 is also much better than the Quest 2. I think I could probably use that for live streaming. The only problem I've got with it is a little bit close to my nose, and so it does tend to pick up some huffing and puffing. But I'm sure I can get around that by attaching some kind of windshield to it. But the main point is Quest 3 6, Quest 2 2. Mixed reality. Whilst not strictly of interest to sim racers, there is no mixed reality in iRacing, at least not yet. Mixed reality is a big part of the Quest 3, and it would be remiss of me to ignore it. Like everyone else who received a Quest 3, one of the first things I did after setup was to dive straight into first encounters, the mixed reality experience that comes preloaded on the headset. I did need to spend a little more time scanning the room first, but being a geek, I found this interesting and fun. I know, I'm sad and I have no life. You've all seen this by now, I'm sure, so I won't dwell on the game itself, only to say that you do need a well-lit room for any of it to look any good at all. And yes, mixed reality is a lot of fun. So much so that I have found myself continually distracted by the search for more mixed reality titles, which are a little bit scarce at the moment. It is nice to see older titles like 11, table tennis, getting an update to mixed reality. And here you can see me playing table tennis with my cat. And here I am playing pool in my garden, as it's the only place really big enough to accommodate a virtual pool table. It's also easier in mixed reality to see where the furniture is when you are lunging about, which might save some household insurance claims. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be a real money spinner for Meta, and I look forward to the first real full game that can push this concept to its potential. The Quest 2 does have black and white pass-through, but it's mostly useless in mixed reality, and so the winner here is the Quest 3. Quest 3, 7, Quest 2, 2. Conclusions. Adding up the scores, the Quest 3 is the clear winner, and this may change even further as the software develops for the Quest 3 and more mixed reality titles appear to take advantage of the superior hardware. Without a doubt, the best part of the Quest 3 upgrade is the pancake lenses, which give clear edge-to-edge focus and banishes sweet spots to the history books, which is fantastic. The field of view shows a slight gain for the Quest 3, but its overall improvements in graphics, connection times, better audio, and a lack of a sweet spot are the important factors here. Whether or not this is enough to justify the sort of money a Quest 3 costs in comparison to a Quest 2, you will have to decide for yourself. If you have a Quest 2 and you're thinking of upgrading to a Quest 3, then I would say that it probably makes sense, but only if you can afford it, as the leap in quality is not, in my opinion, truly representative of the price you need to stump up for a Quest 3. If you don't own any VR headset and you have the money to spare, then in my opinion, this is the headset for you. It just works well with iRacing, adds an extra level of comfort over the Quest 2, and is just a much better headset. I haven't mentioned the controllers much, as I only really use them to get into iRacing and then it's over to the mouse, but in other games they get a fair workout and actually track really well. In all, I found virtually no difference between using the controllers on the Quest 2 and the Quest 3. Oh, and the hand tracking is still pants. That being said, I certainly have no regrets about my purchase. I love the increased graphic fidelity and the modest field of view increase. The better comfort is fantastic, the audio is great, and also when I'm not playing iRacing, mixed reality is really cool. I will be using this headset for all my future race videos, inside iRacing and with other titles. But because I'm also a little beguiled with mixed reality, I will be, in the near future, reviewing on this channel various new VR titles that take my fancy. Please leave a comment below if you have any other questions or any experiences with the Quest 3 that you would like to share, or if you have any suggestions for titles you would like me to review. Until then, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on track. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the like button, and if you haven't already done so, subscribe. Click the little bell icon if you want to be notified of any future videos.